introduce you. I mean, you're a mother of 4, 3 of whom are already in college, and you have an 11th grader. That's your youngest, and you live right outside. This is a national, broadcast. So with people who are just tuning in, you live outside of Atlanta, although you and I know that it's a little bit farther than the metro area, Milton, Georgia.
Yes.
So we have been doing so much research as a team on college athletes, NIL endorsements, everything from wearing a watch to driving a vehicle that they don't have to pay for. And your husband played in college. My husband played, D1 athletics in college. And I'll tell you, even 20 years ago, there was no such thing as NIL for athletes.
No. And the collective. I mean, the collective is what's crazy to me. But between those two things, it has definitely changed since we were in school.
Can you explain that to me, the NIL, the collective, all of it? Because
sure. So, of course, there's just the scholarship, which pays for football. So I have four kids going to school on scholarships for sports, and it's very different within those 4. So the 2 boys play football at Miami currently, and so they're on a full scholarship for football. So all of their school, their housing, and their food is paid for 100%. And then they also receive NIL money, which is things outside of the school that they have no control over, which usually our agent gets them deals for that kind of stuff. So one of my sons has a deal with Ford. So they've given him a car and he does a couple commercials. They both have a scooter deal. So they've gotten scooters and then they again have to do commercials through that. There's a golf store that represents them. They've gotten some golf clubs and gear through them. They both do a trading card deal. So, and it's very different for both boys. They signed, they have to sign their signatures, a couple 100,000 signatures, and then they've gotten paid on that. And then obviously the more they play, that will go up. So those are the NIL stuff. Then there's the collective. So the collective is probably a little different through each school, depending on the school that they go to. So Miami has a huge collective. So it's money usually by investors or people who have gone to school there, anyone that wants to invest in the team. So some teams obviously have more to be able to give their athletes than others. So Miami has a huge collective, and then they get paid outside of that, a scholarship, a salary, which is just crazy.
I was going to say, so my first response, first of all, I have 1,000 questions. I just want to spit fire questions and interrupt you every 5 seconds. Is, first of all, how do you keep it straight? You mentioned agent. I mean, it's almost like it's snowballing, that they're no longer just out there on the field.
Correct. So the boys have an agent. Definitely. We do not have an agent for the girls, nor do we think that we need one at this point, because it's just a different landscape. But the boys, yes, we need one, especially for our one that's a quarterback at Miami. He just happens to handle both of them. But so he handles all the negotiations through Miami and through the collective. His salary, he does all the NIL deals. He also happens to work for Drew Brees, which has helped because he definitely has the contacts. So he reached out to us when we were in high school, and we interviewed a couple different people, and he was one that we ended up staying with, and he's been great. He handles all of their, we've had to sign the next deal for the next year, and he handles all of that.
Well, and I mean, just obviously, I compared that only. My husband, as you know, played Major League Baseball for 15 years. So I'm very intimately familiar with the role of an agent. I'm assuming that, and not to get too personal, he takes 10%, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it mirrors what would be a professional athlete, such as Drew Brees. It's, I would assume, a very similar structure. He handles it almost identically. Is that right?
As far as I know, I mean, I don't know, obviously, because I don't have the pro to compare it to, but from what I've been told, yes.
Okay, so your 2 boys play football, and then your 2 girls, there's one already.
I have a older daughter at Virginia, UVA, and this wasn't her. She used to be at SMU. She was a swimmer at SMU. So she had NIL through SMU for swimming. It was, a couple $100 maybe a month or something, very whatever they would give you. And swimming at that point, we were like, yes, we'll take it. And she didn't even have a full scholarship, but so it's very different within the sports. But and then she ended up not loving SMU at all for a couple different reasons, mainly the coach. There was 38 girls on the team and 30 of them ended up transferring that year that this new coach came in. So that's a big thing too. Coaches change and the whole year, a lot changes. So she did not love it there anymore. So she ended up transferring to Virginia, not for swimming, actually for rowing. So she went to Virginia for rowing. And she was not on a full scholarship for rowing. So
I'm going to get a little bit, this might make you uncomfortable here with, you said the roles of coaches. So I have, and this is 20, actually it's more than 20 years ago, but who's counting, that I was in college. And to me, the coaches were, and I want to say not everyone had a great experience, but to me it seemed like a paternal figure, no ulterior motives. Certainly there are boosters. There's always been boosters. I went to the University of Florida. Come on. But and of course I didn't see the politics going on behind the scene, but I just heard from my husband, his experiences with his coach. Now it seems like coaches are running their own business.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, I think it's definitely changed for sure. We as a parent, we send our kids off to college hoping that they're going to have a great experience with the coach and they're going to be like another father figure or mother figure to their kids and take care of them behind the scenes, even though they don't need taking care of at that point. But you just hope that they're, treated fairly and they're given, given all the chances that they deserve. Right. So, and it hasn't happened through coaches. You send them off and then there's coaches that come in and change and get fired. And then they hire a new set of coaches and, they didn't bring those kids in. So they're not invested in those kids that were already there. So that's hard too, to watch all of that. So we've had some changes, especially my oldest son has changed schools because of that whole change of coaches.
You're coaching kids who are millionaires. You're not coaching kids who are going out on the field because they're amped. I mean, am I making is that a false statement? I
think there's some truth to that. I think in my older son's experience, he loved the coaches that recruited him. He was at Michigan State, had a great experience. He loved it. And then they were fired for various reasons and they brought in new coaches and my son decided not to go into the transfer portal because he did like it at that point. All of his friends were there and he was playing and enjoying it. And they brought in these new coaches, which he thought were going to be great. But they weren't great for the program. And then they weren't great for him because then they ended up bringing their tight ends in also. So, it sent my son from being, a starter down to not starting. And so he ended up going in the transfer portal 6 months later.
Heard a lot about the portal lately. I'm not sure everyone knows what that is.
Yeah. It's a good thing in some ways, but it's also a bad thing. We're experiencing that first. We've experienced it firsthand. Of course, it helped my son get to Miami to be with his brother. So in that respect, he ended up at a great school and whatnot, but it also hurt him because he was happy where he was and he wouldn't have had to go in the transfer portal. And again, when these kids from high school go into the school, they think, okay, I'm going to stay there for 4 years. I'm going to the school that I love. And then of course, because of the transfer portal, they might get kicked out or pushed out because they're going into the transfer portal to get kids that are older and better and more experienced than they are. So they're going to, of course, play somebody that's 24 and 25 that has experience over an 18-year-old kid.
What are the requirements for the how old do you have to be? Can you be in there in high school? Is there a bracket?
So once the kids are in college, they would go how it's worked for us. I feel like you have to be at least complete 1 year before you go in the transfer portal. I don't think that maybe 6 months. If an 18-year-old goes to college, I would assume they'd finish usually kids go in January. So they're probably not going into the portal till their first January comes around.
What about you said at 24, what if?
Well, they get 4 years of eligibility, and then there's obviously some reasons behind that. So most freshmen redshirt, so if you're not playing over 5 games, you get to redshirt. So you get an extra year of eligibility. So my freshman son this year, who was a quarterback, played less than 4 games, so he redshirted. So he still has 4 more years. Meanwhile, he's already completed a whole year of school. So he could graduate in 3 years, but he still has 4 years of football left. My oldest son redshirted his freshman year because he had a hernia surgery. So he redshirted that year. And then he just had surgery at Miami. So he got another year of eligibility because he had shoulder surgery. So he gets an extra year for that. So he'll end up being able to play for 5 years. So he will be 24, when he graduates.
So from your perspective, and when they redshirt, and I again, I'm not being critical. My husband redshirted actually.
Yeah.
He stayed in college for 5 years, and in full transparency, although he was on an academic scholarship, he was taking like a scuba class for an entire week. But he wasn't making any money. So my question to you would be, your observation is that you do actually want, or it's okay to be redshirt. You're maximizing your profits. It's not that you're maximizing your education.
I'll be honest, we are really happy that my youngest son, that both ended up redshirting. Obviously, it gives them a whole extra year. I feel like, especially when they come in from high school, they could be the best high school players. And, they both came out of high school being top players, and then they go into college and they're not top players. It doesn't mean that they're not good. It just means they're now competing against kids that have been playing for a long time, that have experience. They're a lot bigger. So it gives them a year to practice, to get used to the offense. It gets to weight train. And so I feel like it's a good thing. There's very few freshmen that are ready to come out of school and high school and play. We have one on Miami that's crazy good. I mean, he was young and he's playing and he's good. He's one of the best players in college football. So he deserves to play, but not everybody's ready like that.
Are you comfortable?
I feel like it was a good thing.
Are you comfortable and maybe you can give us ballpark, from a working mom and how much are kids making these days? Are you comfortable sharing some numbers?
Oh yeah, a lot. And it's different even with obviously in my kids. I mean, my son that's a quarterback is making way more money as a freshman than my son who's a tight end. It's just the position and the skill and whatnot. Some of these kids,
thousands, millions.
So a lot of them are making a couple $100,000, and then some of them are making millions of dollars. Yeah. So for example, even freshmen that had a good year last year, I heard at Miami, are making $4 or $5 million.
So a freshman in college is making $4 to $5 million a year to play for
the collective. Then you obviously get their whole scholarship. Yep. And then they'll have NIL deals on top of that. So yeah, some could even be making upwards of more than that.
So as a parent, I assume I'm not going to ask you your salary, but I assume that you and your husband do fairly well. You have 4 children and you're both.
My kids are making more than we are combined, which people are like, that's just crazy. There should be no such thing. And, I have different thoughts on it. It's gotten out of hand. For sure. But, I'm happy for them. They haven't been home since June. They've worked literally around the clock. They're out the door at 5:30 in the morning, and they're not back. Their routine starts back over again. Like they're in classes after practice at 1 o'clock, and then they go back to meetings, and then they don't get home till 9 o'clock at night, and then they do it all over again.
So they're working their asses off essentially, and they're not doing drugs and all the things. Because
they wouldn't even have time for that. They don't go out. Like someone said, oh, they're by Miami. They get to go to the beach and do all that stuff. They've maybe been once to the beach when they've had a long weekend, but they don't have time for that.
It's funny you should say that, because my first reaction was, and maybe it was a little bit selfish, because I thought to myself, well, my husband didn't have that opportunity. That's not fair. Mm-hmm. But then if it were my own kids, I feel like a huge hypocrite, because I'd say to them, go for it. Good for you. Capitalize on it. Here is an agent and protection and means to plan so you don't blow your $4 million. But I would imagine not everybody has that invested.
Well, I think they don't. My boys have even said this. Luckily, my boys are smart, and they, take all of their money that they're making in the collective, and it just goes in the bank. And they have an investor on the side besides the agent that helps them with that. So that they're set for life. This is your money to spend. This is your money to save. And neither one of them have touched their money from the collective. They just save it because they know it's going to set them up for their future. Miami gives them enough money to pay for their rent, all of their food, and gives them money on the side for spending money. So they don't need to touch any of it. Unfortunately, there's kids out there that don't understand that and don't have someone helping them. So they, are making $100,000 and they've never had that before. And they go out and buy an $80,000 car and then they still have to pay taxes on it. And they're like, oh gosh, we have no money left. I didn't know that. So that I think there's a lot of kids that don't understand.
That's where my mind goes. Cause I mean, you and I are familiar with financial literacy. And I remember when I went to school, I didn't have a scholarship, but I knew how much my parents were. I knew it was all laid out for me. But that seems like a whole nother level of challenges that I can't comprehend as an 18, 19, 20.
I mean, it is. And I almost wish that all of the colleges would have a class on teaching them what to do with their finances, that all of a sudden they're making this kind of money. How do you save it? What do you do with it? Because not everybody has the resources that we just have the contacts to be able to say, okay, this is what you're doing and this is what you're doing with your money. And luckily my kids, I think because we have grown up with 4 kids, they haven't had everything handed to them and they understand the value of, saving and, if they want certain things, they're going to have to work for it.
But have you seen firsthand the opposite? Because I kind of get a Macaulay Culkin, no offense to him, but like a childhood star vibe with some of these kids. And that's what I'm envisioning. Opposite of your kids is that they're going to get all this money. They're sort of going to peak in life. And then, like you said, you tear your ACL playing,
I think that happens more than we, would think. I mean, I think, my boys have seen it, So, I think we're just lucky and we have had that talk with our boys that, this is what you need to do in order to set yourself up. You're getting a head start that we never had. So I think they're very aware of that, but unfortunately, I don't think everybody is.
What has surprised you the most? Is it, the alumni, and this is a blanket statement. This could be a little bit controversial, but the boosters and the alumni being perhaps an influence in the coach's ear? Is it just the mass amounts of money? What has surprised you the most in the 6 months?
Unfortunately, so it has changed a lot. And I'll just speak from personal experience. My sons, the youngest ones, they're both very good players, but actually I'd say this happened sort of to both of them. They're both very good players, but I think there were kids that were ahead of them on the depth chart because of what the collective had paid them. And then the coaches had to answer to that. These kids came in thinking, they were going to be like these stars, and they paid them a certain amount. And then, so they have to play them, because they have to answer to the collective. Like, why aren't you playing this kid? I just gave you this X amount of money. It doesn't matter that someone else is better. We're paying you for this kid, and they have to answer to that. So I think the coaches have to answer to that, the thing. And, it's been a hard year to have to watch that.
Do you feel as if it's gotten out of control, and how you can't put the genie back in the bottle? That's where I'm really curious here, is that what can be done where, I understand that kids that are now adults, they're not kids, they're over the age of 18. Maybe they want to be compensated because, listen, they are making money for the school, right? I mean, there's another side to me being critical. Like you just said, you want the best for your kids, and they're working their tails off. But has it gotten out of control?
Well, yeah, kids are leaving schools, there's no loyalty anymore. It's like you leave, a lot of kids are leaving because of money and how much another school is going to pay them. And then maybe, where that school is going to get them. And obviously most kids' goal is to get to that next level. So if they're going to get to that next level better than being at the school that they're at, and they're going to get paid more, I guess, why wouldn't you leave, right? So you can't fault them. They're being offered this money. In their dreams and all that stuff. So I get it. It's just hard because it's just hard to watch, I guess.
Well, and also I get the sense is you do all this work, you work with an agent, and you get your son and he makes the team at Miami, and then the transfer portal, for me, it feels like you have to sleep with one eye open. So if you back up sort of in a macro view, you've already gone through this 3 times. So what have you learned already, and how would you handle it differently with your youngest, if at all?
Well, we always told all of our kids like to go where you're wanted and where you're needed. So like, for example, my daughter, had a list of 20 schools. She went to all the ID camps. She's a soccer player and she did everything she, could get to get her scholarship. She's playing at a top team and travel team. And so a couple schools, June 15th, they can reach out. And of course, all these schools reached out, some of her top schools and whatnot. And so you're, navigating that, and you try to like, okay, are they telling the truth? What do they need? And you end up going with a school. She ended up going to a school that wasn't on her top 20. And it's a school that kind of wasn't something wasn't on the radar. But their coaches were fabulous. We could tell they were honest. They offered her a crazy deal that she wasn't going to get. Soccer doesn't usually give full rides and NIL money, and she got that. And she ended up falling in love with the school and the coaches and the team. And we always told them, go where you're wanted and you're needed. I mean, they wanted her. So I feel like she's not going to have some of the nonsense that comes along with, sitting the bench and having to work through that. I really think they're being honest, but of course there's no way to really tell until we get there. Right.
But this is the 11th grader. So she's 11th grade. How early are kids committing now to, for folks who don't have a high school?
11th grade. In the summer before their 11th grade, most sports, so football is different. You can start reaching out. I mean, there's kids in 9th grade that are getting scholarship offers, but they're more like just offers and watch, like they will watch you for the next couple of years. And then you usually can't commit until probably around your 10th, 11th grade year. Whereas most sports like soccer, lacrosse, things, you're not committing until your junior year, and they can start talking to you in June. I think lacrosse is August, I believe, 15th, but for soccer, it's June 15th. I mean August 15th for lacrosse. So I think every sport has a different date that they can start talking to you on the phone and calling you and actually having that communication. Otherwise, it's through the coaches before that. Like, I have interest in your player.
Was lost though. If you and I have this question. My next question is, I actually have a friend who I saw just weeks ago, and her daughter's in 9th grade, and we're sort of caravanning across the West Coast looking at different colleges just because. And I said, your daughter is, she's 15, 16 years old. And she said, oh, this is.
You start doing the camps. Yes. So like 9th, 10th grade, you start doing all these ID camps and start getting on the coach's radar. Soccer, we have like days where we go, like we were just there. It's like there's showcases. So our whole team would go to a showcase, and there's 100 college coaches on the sideline watching you from 9th grade all the way until 10th or 11th.
Do you think that's too young as a parent?
I mean, it's definitely scary. It's definitely nerve-wracking. It's stressful. Sorry, my puppy's in the background playing with his toys.
It sounds like, as I said, are you sure you don't have a basketball player?
He's taking his toy and smashing it against the ground.
I have had one of my canines make an appearance. I'm not sure how I successfully closed my door today, but Christine, my esteemed producer, can attest to a surprise. It makes it more authentic, right? I think my mind is a little bit blown. I have a preteen who she's definitely not focused on much. She does all sorts of sports. And I'm thinking to myself, holy am I late? If she doesn't pick a sport, then she's going to go to college, and I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, my kids all did multiple sports, and then we were in middle school, and we're like, okay, you need to focus on one sport. I mean, because that's how it is today. You can't do multiple sports in high school. And then, there are kids that can, obviously, but if you're really going to focus on one sport, you have to decide probably in middle school what that sport's going to be.
I had someone come up to me, we're starting, tryouts for Little League, and they asked if my 5-year-old would want to do this hybrid travel team. And I thought, I can't even get this kid to brush his teeth at night. You want him on a travel team? I'm finding chewed up gum on my hardwood floor, and you want this kid on a travel team because
And it's a huge commitment for parents and families. I mean, we spent hours and hours at a field. I mean, our whole family would, both my boys were into baseball. And so we would spend hours and hours on the baseball field all summer long, you know, and then we would be traveling everywhere. We spent tons of money. All of our vacations were around between lacrosse and baseball, like traveling all over the country for stuff. Football's not as crazy, but it's crazy what these families have to go through to get to that step. So,
well, I mean, and even a rec team, if you want to play for a season, it's thousands. Like a club. I mean, I thought to myself, I was going to sign my daughter up for volleyball, and then I realized this is a huge time commitment. We have 2 other children. My husband travels. Like, how are we going to do this? What if I had a desk job? I don't know. How do parents do it?
it's hard. And I mean, luckily, I mean, we had a great community, and we had, you know, someone who would take our daughter here where we took our son here, and then we would divide and conquer. We hardly ate dinner at the same time together throughout the school year. So it's definitely a huge commitment. I mean, obviously it's paid off. We have 3 kids that are completely paid for college, and then one that has a partial scholarship. So it's helped obviously a lot. But we've spent all that money up front. We're just getting it back eventually. But
so when you see these kids making these essentially millions of dollars, do you think that it's the industry is still growing? Because I would say what my observations is it's not slowing down. I'm just seeing more money, social media. I'm seeing, I mean, like I said, my daughter needs to be playing in some type of a club team if I want her to even play at high school. That's how competitive it is. So that's a trickle down effect, is it not? Because they're making millions of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, not every sport obviously is like that. I mean, it's really football, I feel like, and probably baseball. I don't think the other sports are making that kind of money at all. So, but I don't see it ending. I mean, unless they figure something out. I mean, there's going to have to be some stricter rules. I mean, everyone says, well, if you go in the transfer, there's no rules about how many times you go in the transfer portal. There probably needs to be rules about that, about you go in once and then you have to sit for a while, so that kids aren't just leaving, or if they're signing contracts, they're not allowed to just leave a school after they've signed a contract and go to another school.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. There needs to be rules. Where could that possibly come from? I mean, could it be policy? Where would the rules come down?
Well, I mean, I think right now there's people who, you know, I don't know that my husband with that. This is more of a question for my husband about who's running all that stuff. There is somebody but they're not really set. I mean, they're allowing kids to, like I said, someone has a contract and then be able to switch right before the deadline and switch and go to another school, even if they've already signed a contract with another school. There should be rules around that, because it now hurt this other school. And technically it's kind of hurting the school that the person's going to, because, you know.
Yeah, but Lisa, it's not going to stop. The agents are making money. The schools are making money. The sponsors are making, nobody's losing.
No.
It's like and then it trickles down.
Well, people are losing. Some of the kids are losing from it, because, you know, these are all the stars that are making that kind of stuff. So there's kids that, like I said, that are coming out of college, that are high school, that are really good players, that are never going to see the bench or never able to see thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that they're not good. It's just changed college sports, and like it's taken some of the fun out of it. I feel like you go to college because you've picked a school and you want it to be 4 years and you want it to be like, you know, your school. You want to put stuff in it. It's just, there's no loyalty anymore, I feel like.
No loyalty. And I wonder how you'd respond to really no longer authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
But your children are authentic, right? So are you conflicted when I say that statement?
A little. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I mean, my son that's a quarterback, I mean, he wants to play, and he's good enough to play. So he, you know, I mean, the agents basically told them, like, okay, well, I know he's young, he's 18 years old. So yeah, we're going to give it time, but he should be playing. And you're bringing in this kid, an older kid, and you're paying him a crazy amount. And, you know, now he still has to sit the bench for a year. He's only going to do that for a certain amount of time, and then he's going to have to go somewhere else where he's wanted and needed.
So
If next year they pull the same thing, we're going to have to think about that,
So how does that make you feel as a mom? Because, in theory, I say I'm going to send my kids to college and say, all right, here's the door. You're going to be great. It's not, though. They're my kids.
It's sad and scary, but in some ways, like I said, my daughter that went to SMU, she ended up having a horrible experience. And like, if she wasn't given that opportunity to be able to switch and go somewhere else, like she would have been miserable for those 4 years. Right. So it ended up opening up a door for her that we wouldn't have ever thought. I mean, we sent her away and she went away to college thinking that was the place she was going to be at for 4 years. And she was so excited. And then it wasn't what she thought it was going to be. And now she's so happy. She loves where she is. And maybe that wouldn't have happened if she wasn't given that opportunity. Right. So in some ways it's good, but knowing that there's so many options out there that you can go to college. And if you're not happy, you can leave. Right. But then it's also like, there's so much that it's like, again, where's the loyalty, all of it? And that's not why you went there to begin with. You went there because you were in love with the program and you wanted to make it work and whatnot. So
isn't that fascinating that you have 4 children and then 2 out of the 4, you've had such an opposite experience with the transfer portal on one hand. And of course, we don't have to get into the details. Your son was almost slighted and it was a surprise, but your daughter had this opportunity where she could go somewhere and play a different sport and feel valued and have a great experience. When I hear all of these stories from you, I also think to myself, boy, that's a really complicated and stressful time. When I went to, and granted, I remember college I loved college. It was before I had any responsibility. Your kids have a ton of responsibility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And these kids, some of these kids that are, in college, they might want to, like, they're not playing and they want to go into the transfer portal, but they don't have any film. So like they could go, this really good kid out of high school. We've watched it with some of our friends. They've come out of high school and they're a top player, but they're not playing their freshman or sophomore year. And they decide to go in the transfer portal, but they don't have the film. So then they're looking at a school that maybe they're not interested in, but they have to in order to build their way back up. So they might go to another school for a couple of years. We watched one of our friends go from a top, D1 school down to a different D1 level D1 school. And they ended up getting all this film, doing well. And now they're back up and making a lot of money. So sometimes they have to do that too, which they don't even think about when they're, they don't think that's going to happen to them. And it's okay. It's okay to be able to do that. It's just hard for some to stomach that and say, okay, but I was this really good player and I had all these offers out of high school and now I'm in college and not playing. I have to go to somewhere where I would never have thought of going, but I have to.
Yeah. Did you ever think, especially when you were raising young kids, that we would get to this point? And I would say my next question, in addition to that, would be, is this a whole community and a whole world that you sort of entered into and other families are experiencing this too?
We know some that are experiencing the same thing. It's definitely not something we ever expected or ever thought about. A lot of it's exciting, but some of it's scary. And we've lost sleep over it, but it's also exciting, just the potential and the whole idea of it. So there's good and bad things, obviously.
Okay, well, I can hear your puppies getting really annoyed with us, so I think I'll be one question.
He does not need to go out. He thinks he needs to go out, but he does not need to go out.
Well, listen, I always honor a puppy's demands, so I promise I'll wrap it up. But I think my last question would be, what would be your piece of advice? Because to me, I've learned so much, and I still have more questions. But
you can reach out anytime, obviously, and if you forget something, and you can reach out. I'm happy to answer them. I think the best thing, kids have to love what they're doing. If they don't love this, it's so much work. It's a job for sure. And if my boys or my girls did not love playing the sport that they're in, we would tell them to stop. Like it's not worth their time and effort. And when my daughter, like I said, was swimming and she was just crying every day, and we were like, this is not worth it. It's like, we don't care about any of this stuff. We just want you to be happy and to have fun. Like, you're supposed to go to college and have fun. I mean, they have a very different college experience than kids that go off to a 4-year college and they're, partying at night and getting to do, sororities. That my kids don't get to do that stuff, and they're okay with it because that's what they want to do. But I think, you have to want it. And you have to say, okay, this is not the college. If what you want in college is if you want the party life and you want to be able to do the sororities and stuff, then you can't play a sport. I mean, you just can't. And that's okay. I think you just have to be prepared. Like I said, all 4 of mine we've never told them they had to play in college. They've just wanted to. It's like, and I kept thinking, oh God, my poor youngest, she doesn't stand a chance. Like, she's going to think she has to, but she wants to. Like, it's just sort of something that's been bred in them. And it's like, they are obsessed with it. I don't know if, like, even when they're done with school, I think they're going to have a hard time with that, missing the void of not having all that activity. Like, I feel like they're going to miss it in some ways, even though it's hard. So I think you have to love it. You have to want to be able to want that kind of lifestyle. And then you have to work every day at it. It's not something you have to just keep trying every day. So.
Well, I mean, Lisa, you're amazing. You raised 4 amazing kids, and hats off to you. And thank you for leading the way in all this. And parents can take away some really valuable advice. And there's good and there's bad. There's beautiful and there's ugly, and a lot of money out there. So thank you for taking the helm. We appreciate you.
Of course, anytime. Happy to help.